$5.3 billion. Billion dollars, a lot of money. And that's how much the Andrews government wants to spend on social housing by 2024. In fact, it's the largest ever investment, we're told, in social housing. And it's taxpayers, of course, who'll be footing the bill. To discuss this and a whole lot more, I'm joined by my terrific Friday panel from Sydney, social commentator, one of your favourites, Prue McSween, and from Sydney too, host of Outsiders here on Sky News, and the Spectator's editor-in-chief, Rowan Dean. Rowan, I'm going to start with you. What I find fascinating is core business of a state government is social housing. Right, that's the first point. But rather than pay for it, out of all the money and charges and taxes that the Victorian government gets anyway, they want to hit Victorians, who did it tough last year, with a whole lot of new levies in order to pay for affordable housing. What do you make of this?
Well, it's just absurd, Peter. The primary job of a government should be getting people out of social housing and giving them a foot up on the ladder to private property ownership, having a job, being able to contribute to society, not the reverse. It's no surprise that a Labor government like Dan Andrews thinks that social housing is the holy grail. I mean, this is basically socialism. Of course, any government must be able to provide housing for people who are down on their luck, for those who need it. But that should be coming out of their basic taxes that are already being paid. To suddenly start hitting people up with money, much of which we know, unfortunately, not all, but much of which we know from history, when it goes into social housing, when people live in a home that they don't actually own, it tends to not be treated as well. You tend to get problems developing around large social welfare estates, such as we see in Britain. So the last thing the Andrews government should be doing is pumping more money into social housing. They should be getting people out into jobs and giving them the opportunity to own their own home.
And we're spot on. When we see the incentives there, we're just discussing with Michael Sukkar, you get this drive.
Precisely.
Where you're getting a lot of people into the housing market. As I said, there's no better sort of Australian than someone who's faced with a mortgage. It sharpens the mind in terms of policy and who they might vote for at the next election. Prue, I want to go to another issue. This is really fascinating to me. There were 6 vacancies in Victoria for new police detectives, but nothing's happened because no women were chosen in the shortlist to go forward. So a whole lot of transfers happened last year. There was the vacancies, but we're told Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelius is saying we won't be filling them because we want a more inclusive workforce. There's no women that have made the grade, so we're just going to keep them empty. Now, honestly, if we need detectives and the best detectives in the shortlist are male detectives, if the difference between a male detective and a no detective is there, I want the detective in the job, not out of the job.
Exactly, Peter. I mean, this is... Well, it's great news for the Crims. You know, they've got they're down 6 detectives. How appalling is this, and how insulting it is to the current serving police and detectives and for potential ones. I mean, this all comes back to the best person for the job. Instead of having to tick boxes, we've got someone who's, a Sheila, we've got someone with a disability, someone who's Indigenous. How absurd is this? We want the best people for the job, and the community deserves to have a properly manned police force. And we have instead these woke fools who are just dictating these rules and making it up as they go along to appease whom? I just think it's appalling, and, the minister should be really having to answer for this. This is disgraceful.
Well, there's a win for Crims too in New South Wales. I'll be technically correct, they're offenders until they're proven guilty. But in New South Wales, there's talking regional areas in particular, Rowan, that they're going to save cash, New South Wales Corrective Services, by not running guards overnight. So rather than have someone in a holding cell for 24 hours, they're going to just let them go out on bail and save them money at night. They're talking about 3 regional areas where this will occur. It's a budget decision, not a, security decision for these communities. It's a worry, Rowan.
Well, again, as Prue was saying, I mean, who needs defund the police when our governments are doing it themselves, defunding the police? Here, you either have the police force to do the job they're going to do, as Prue was saying, do the job properly, do it to the best of your ability. Same here. If you're going to let people out on bail, then simply because you can't afford to have enough people after hours, then your criminal justice system is failing, quite simply. But I was interested to know one of the areas, Peter, is Queanbeyan. Well, we know lots of crimes happen after dark in Queanbeyan. There was one where they plotted the removal of your boss, your former boss, Tony Abbott. That happened in Queanbeyan. So I just thought I'd point that out.
Hey, just quickly, a word from both of you. I really feel for the Queen. We've got the arrangements today about Prince Philip's funeral on the weekend, and the men won't be, reportedly we're told, wearing military uniform because poor old Prince Harry doesn't have, the right to wear the uniform anymore because he's left the family. She's got the poor old Queen refereeing all of these blues when she's got bigger things to worry about, Rowan. It's terrible.
It's ridiculous, but she's clearly, Harry and Meghan have thrown so many problems into the mix with the way they've behaved over the last few months. It really is unfair for the Queen, absolutely.
It's terrible, Prue.
It is, but how thoughtful is she? In the time of sorrow, that she decided that she wouldn't, insist that they wear military uniforms because she didn't want Harry to feel displaced. I mean, what a caring, beautiful woman. And as Rowan has said, they've just had nothing but trouble from this family, including Andrew and a lot of the rest of them. And you think, wow, she doesn't deserve it. I'll be watching. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be sad and very powerful, I think.
I agree, absolutely. Thank you both for your time. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
See you, Peter. See you, Prue.
You too. Thanks, Peter. Bye.